Could it be? Could it be? It is out of here!
And it's a no-hitter! Unbelievable! Ruiz and Halladay embrace!
Champion!
Swing and a drive, left field. It's deep, it's going,
Yes!
and it is gone!
Yes!
It is bedlam at the bank as Bryce Harper has put the Phillies on top!
We're talking about the Defiance here. Say!
Hello and welcome everybody to the Specific Jawns Phillies Baseball Podcast, your elite source of amateur commentary on all things Philadelphia Phillies. This is our first episode. I want to introduce our usual panel. We've got Pat Barker, Mike Sambuco, and myself, Carl Bacuti. Mike and Pat, what have you guys been up to? How you feeling about this past week? What's new?
I mean, I had a busy day writing letters to anybody who would listen with my thoughts on the Super Bowl halftime show. Very strong opinions on that. Mike, you don't know me well enough, but one of these days we'll talk Bad Bunny. I have a lot of things to say. Very passionate about it. No, I'm good. I was losing my mind. I spent way too long building these bobblehead shelves. I had to dig into the back of my closet to find my bobbleheads. I found out the hard way that my Jimmy Rollins is missing an arm. Couldn't find any of the players that I grew up loving, so instead I have the Mike Schmidt with the giant teeth. Overall, it's been a very frustrating day for me. Because you're putting it together and then you're like, why am I a 42-year-old man putting together bobblehead shelves for a makeshift podcast studio? Will I ever own a house? Will I ever not be a failure? And the answer seems to be no. So other than that, I'm doing great.
Yeah, I got to say, Pat, every time I visit you, there are a couple fewer bobbleheads and at least one more child in the house. So it's a trend that I've noticed. Mike, what are you up to?
You know, as somebody who has spent years cultivating this background for my work office, I spent the last week in Florida getting some nice weather in. So I got out of the snow, was able to avoid the freezing temps for 5 days. The wife and kids are still down there, so I'm home alone with the dog now.
Nice. Well, speaking of Florida, the Phillies sent their trailer down there for spring training. I believe that was last Wednesday. Pitchers and catchers report formally this Wednesday. And then the first full workout with the full squad will be on Monday. So we are really finally into baseball season. Super Bowl's over, as boring as that was. Let's get into the throes of baseball. And there was a comment yesterday from Dave Dombrowski that was a little surprising given the way things have gone with him and fan opinions and everything else this offseason, where he really pressed on the fact that he doesn't think this team is done with transactions. He thinks the trade market's going to heat up in the last few weeks of the offseason. We know what we've done so far. You know, we had some big signings, re-signings essentially of Kyle Schwarber, JT Realmuto. We brought in Brad Keller. We signed Zach Pop. I think that's the extent of the new contracts that were given out. We have a lot of holes. We've talked about this, in our pre-episodes. No one has heard those yet. But we've got a lot of depth issues that we definitely know this Phillies team needs to address. Some positions that certainly have not gotten any better. Maybe no position has gotten better, other than maybe right field. But how do you guys grade this offseason for the Phillies so far? I will say that The Athletic came out with their rankings for every team at this point. They gave the Phillies a C+, which I thought was probably fair, maybe even half a grade generous. Division rivals were given, the Mets were given an A-, the Braves were given a B+. I was a little surprised by the Braves ranking there. I think that has more to do with coming back from injuries than anything else. But yeah, the Phillies C+, are you feeling the same way? Higher, lower, just about right? And do you think we're done?
I'll start. I love that we brought back Schwarber. I think in a lineup devoid of power, he was kind of that big piece that was needed. I don't love spending 5 years, $150 million on a DH when you have an aging lineup, but you kind of needed to in order to kind of salvage some production offensively. I don't love that they're still a bat short. I think they need a middle of the lineup bat. And they kind of agree with that statement by their little foray into Bo Bichette that didn't come out to fruition. But the outfield's still a concern. I mean, they have 4 guys in Garcia, Crawford, Marsh, and Kemp that they're kind of putting together, where 3 of them are really big question marks, and the 4th in Marsh is a guy who is a strong side platoon. Like, that's not an ideal way to go into a regular season.
I mean, look, do I think they're done? No, simply because I don't think that they have the depth right now to go into the opening day. They just don't when it comes to starting pitching, when it comes to the bullpen, and especially when it comes to the outfield. I mean, Mike, you hit the nail on the head. It's not. Yeah, they do need another middle of the lineup bat. I don't think they're going to get that. But I'm talking about just filling out the roster at this point. Like, in a time where most teams are going with 6-man rotations, especially if they have a situation like Andrew Painter coming off of a subpar season, his rookie season, 1 year removed from a major surgery. This is a situation where a lot of teams would be like, okay, we are going to ease him in. He's going to start in the minors. He'll come up in June. He's on an innings limit. We'll turn him loose towards it. We want to limit his innings early in the year. The Phillies are just like, nah, he's one of our guys. And they have, as you've mentioned before, Carl, offline, they've had very good fortune in regards to injuries. But to go into this season and just assume that Andrew Painter is going to be able to give you 160 innings, that Aaron Nola coming off of an injury is going to be able to give you 160 to 180 innings, Zach Wheeler is not going to be ready for opening day. They do not have any level of depth. I mean, you're looking at those 3 guys, and then Wheeler and Sanchez, Walker and Sanchez. And if you go into the season being like, well, one of the things we are counting on is Taijuan Walker, that's a bad sign. That's a bad sign. I think the C+ is a very generous grade. I'm grading on a curve. I know realistically, they could have lost Schwarber. They could have lost Real Muto. This could have been a lot worse. But it certainly wasn't good. And C+ to me is bordering on good. And I just can't quite go there. I can't. I'd have to go lower.
I do like what they did with the bullpen to gain Keller. I think there's some upside with a couple of the guys they took flyers on. McKinstry's another one with the Rule 5 pick that I think has some upside that could turn into a guy that they trust in like a 6th inning role. They still have the makings of like a strong 1, 2, 3 at the end of the bullpen. So I think the bullpen could end up being a strength, but I'm concerned about the starting pitching depth.
Yeah, I think it's important to note the type of flyers that were taken on this offseason with prospects. The way that Dombo and Topper have talked about, to address fan concerns that they haven't upgraded positions. Topper especially has been very specific about how he feels about Otto Kemp, how he feels about Justin Crawford, Andrew Painter, and then maybe down the line an Aiden Miller. And Dombo seems to be in lockstep with that. He's talked up all 4 of those prospects really from the beginning. But are we to expect any of them to not just make the roster, but be productive in a way that you need for a contending team? I mean, it seems to be that the assumption is that Crawford will make the roster, that Painter probably will. I don't know where we've seen him pitch at a major league level yet. Coming off that injury, it certainly didn't show by the end of the last minor league season. And then Aiden Miller, I don't think they're expecting him to make the roster, but big things are expected where people think he might get called up in July. Mike, what do you think about these prospects? Is it just a cover-up for their deficiencies in the free agency market, or do you really think we should have that type of faith in these prospects?
I think it's about spreading the allocation of resources that they have financially more than anything. They can't keep committing several $1 million to position players and not have these type of pre-arb salaries to fill out the roster and be impact players. With Crawford, I think, they would find his 2026 season successful if he can play serviceable center field and just be a slightly below average bat in the 9-hole. He has the speed to take over the bases, but I don't think he's going to be asked to do that when he's in front of a Turner, Harper, Schwarber combo at the top of the lineup. He's really there to just play serviceable center field, which is a question mark at this point because he's been graded out pretty poorly in center and has been, kind of slotted to be a left fielder or even a right fielder. And I think that, the offseason work that he's done is going to really kind of make or break his standing on the roster, at least early on. They can settle him in center field. That's a win. But I don't know if he's going to be able to do that to the level that we're used to seeing. I think a guy like Rojas, you could just plug him in if you want that type of high upside defensive center fielder with no bat, but they think there's a little bit more upside with the bat with Crawford. And so, as a rookie, I don't know how much you're going to get out of him, but if he can just be serviceable in both aspects, I think they'll be okay with that.
You bring up such a good point with where he would be in the lineup, too. I don't think we've had a chance to even project that yet. But to have this guy come up, be serviceable at best, that's how everyone is talking about him as a center fielder. But to be in the 9-hole, yeah, he's a guy who is projected to steal something like 40, 50 bases over the course of a full season if he plays that much. But, yeah, you got to consider who's at the turn. And you've got guys that, are you going to be running in front of Turner and Harper consistently? Do you want to take the bat out of their hands with 2 outs, taking that kind of a risk? Like, is that what we're expecting out of Justin Crawford? And is that the kind of value you get out of a guy like that on a contending team? A lesser roster, I feel like a guy like that, yeah, let him fly, let his skills, just be what they are, and hopefully you can fill out a roster around that. But this is not that kind of situation. This is a team that needs to get to the playoffs and win at this stage of this era. I just think that's interesting.
Well, okay, so a couple things on that. Number one, let him steal. Let him steal. I'm a firm believer that you should go into the season with Turner batting first, Harper batting second, Schwarber batting third. I have my reasons to feel that way. And I would even be open to, if God forbid, because friends of ours who are not big Bryce Harper guys have said Bryce Harper refuses to bat earlier than third. I don't know that to be true, but if it is, I still want him protected by Schwarber behind him. Hell, I would rather have Stott leading off Turner and then Harper, Schwarber. I can't have Harper hitting at the end of the line again because they will pitch around him. As far as Crawford, let him run. Okay, take the bat out of Trey Turner's hands. Now you put the bat in Bryce Harper's hands. Take the bat out of Bryce Harper's hands. Now you put it in Kyle Schwarber's hands. That's the whole point of having your big dogs up top, is that guys can run ahead of them. Sure, we're trying to make it difficult for these other teams. Yeah, you can pitch around this guy, but then you got to pitch to this guy. And in my mind, Turner, Harper, Schwarber in that order just gets more and more fearsome. Here's the thing that bothers me about the prospects, because I've been trying to put a finger on it. And listen, Mike knows these guys a lot better than I do. Mike is our prospect guru. This is the first episode. By the end of this episode, you'll know that Mike is by far the most knowledgeable in regards to the prospects. What I think I have a gift for is taking the guttural anger of the average Philadelphian and distilling it down to what the real issue is. And the real issue is, for my entire life, the Phillies organizationally have failed at developing homegrown talent, drafting, international scouting, player development, not only at the minor league level, but also in the major leagues. Even when they have a guy come up and succeed to whatever degree, they plateau very quickly. Aaron Nola plateaued in 2018. Alec Bohm plateaued in 2021. Bryson Stott's been the same player pretty much for 4 years. That's not how it's supposed to work. You're supposed to get better as you go. And as you enter year 5 and 6, that's when you're aiming for that big contract. You're supposed to take a big step forward. These guys are not. They are regressing, if anything. So what I'm saying is I have for years and years and years conditioned myself to believe that if I'm hearing some noise about a Phillies prospect coming up, chances are they're going to be disappointing because there's been a lot more Dom Browns than there have been Chase Utleys. So whether they're not drafting the right guys, whether they're not scouting the right guys, and by the way, it's all of the above, or whether they're not developing the guys properly, Mike, you could sit here and tell me everything there is to know about Justin Crawford. And I think most Phillies fans are going to be like, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
And that's exactly why I wanted them to call him up after the trade deadline last year when they didn't really get a corner guy. They had an opportunity to improve the outfield. They brought in Bader in center, which was great. But they still were playing our good friend Max Kepler, who even on PEDs was not performing all that well. I just don't understand why they didn't give him a shot when he was performing at AAA at a high level, earned his call up, and they just were afraid to call him up even as a part-time player. And that could have given you some better insight into how he would perform at the major league level in 26 and give you that insight for the offseason that just is about to conclude. And I'm afraid that they missed that opportunity.
And also, speaking from the guttural Phillies fan angle, like Pat said, there's a history with this franchise, at least in our lifetime, of really playing around with service time, just not being willing to bring prospects up early at all. We saw that with, our 3 superstars that built the '08 team. And Howard, Rollins was brought up early, but Howard and Utley for sure. I mean, we could have used them a season or 2 earlier, and I think we just have that knee-jerk reaction fairly that the Phillies just don't, for whatever reason they want to give, they don't call up prospects and let them cut their teeth very early, and you get frustrated at the plateau even more so.
Yeah.
Because you felt like you've been forced to wait for this and told, oh, it's coming. This guy's going to be major league talent, and then to be disappointed after that wait time. Yeah, you feel pretty burned as a fan base.
And Mike hit the nail on the head when he said you can't. They backed themselves into a corner where the only way they can make this team better is to go out and spend money on free agents. That's all they can do. They can't even really trade because they don't have a very good farm system that's full of resources to trade. And furthermore, if I'm another team, I'm observing this just as a fan. All of the players don't succeed at the major league level the way you expect them to. So if I'm sitting there, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's the number 25 prospect in all of baseball. But the last 8 times the Phillies had a prospect that good, he flamed out in the majors. I'm taking that into account. So all they can do is sign these big free agents, and they put themselves in a position where, God forbid, like a Bo Bichette thing happens, and then there's no pivot. There's nothing they can do because that's the only card that they know how to play. Other teams, yes, you bring these guys up or you use them as trade bait. Look at what the Mets are doing with their young rotation pieces right now. The Phillies don't have that luxury. So they have to do it, but we have to be skeptical of it until we actually see it work. So, yeah, Mike's right. You can't fill a roster with a bunch of guys that you're paying $25 to $30 million a year. It's not sustainable. But that robs, frankly, the fan base of some excitement. Think about it. If you're in another fan base where you actually trust your organization, remember back the '08 run when they couldn't miss, and we kind of conditioned ourselves for a minute to think maybe they figured it out. Remember the excitement around Dom Brown when he first came up? That doesn't exist anymore because it's like we've seen this movie 1,000 times. So that's the tough part about Rob and Dave pushing this narrative, because I don't think it's an untrue narrative for Rob to come out and be like, well, we have this youth coming up. Everybody said the team's too old. We got these young guys coming up. That, in theory, that should work, but we're all so jaded that it doesn't.
And there were even a few during that era that we traded away. We love the return, the Cliff Lees, the Roy Halladay's, but we thought we were giving away huge pieces. Like, was it Jonathan Singleton, Kyle Draybeck? Turned out to be nothing. I mean, that got us a reputation around the league as, don't buy their prospects. We were sold a bill of goods on guys that we didn't even end up keeping. And it certainly doesn't give us any reason to trust the scouting system at all.
But and it's also gotten so bad that the fans have been conditioned to solving these problems via free agency, where that when you don't really solve the problem via free agency, it looks like you did nothing.
Sure.
And you go into this season now hoping that Crawford is your center fielder with very little prior success in actually having that happen. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that sense, from the fans' perspective.
Yeah, and you almost wonder if when Middleton gave us his famous line that he wanted to spend stupid money, if that was intended to be a Band-Aid for our cynicism about the farm system and our ability to develop players.
Well, the last 4 years of playoff appearances don't happen without free agency.
Absolutely
not.
Not.
I don't know where we would be without the free agent signings of the last 5-6 years. They did what they had to do, and now they have really kind of to dig themselves out of a financial grave. They do have one more year of the Casty contract, one more year of the Taiwan contract. That's $38 million off the books after next year that they can reallocate. But again, we're talking 2027 before we even start 2026.
True that.
It would also be, and just to get one more thought in on this before we move on, it would sure be nice if I had any faith in them to find good young players internationally. I don't know. It is malpractice how poorly they have done with their international scouting. The pipeline, they put out the list of like this. I think they made 16 picks internationally. 11 of them were from Venezuela. Not that there haven't been great ball players from Venezuela. Of course there have. But I looked at the list, and I think there was one guy from the Dominican Republic. Do we even have a scout in the Dominican Republic? I'm serious.
We do. We have a nice Dominican academy down there. It just hasn't gotten us.
Is it a
it
money?
hasn't gotten us.
Is it a front for something, or are they actually looking at? Because I don't know how you build an academy and then have whoever's in charge come back and be like, "I found one guy who's decent." I don't know. It's the Dominican Republic. I don't think we had any Puerto Ricans. We had one guy that was Japan/Brazil. I don't even know what that means.
Hey, let's not get too down on this. We have Johan Rojas from the Dominican Republic.
DR.
He made their World Baseball Classic
Yes, he did.
team.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Mike, give me your assessment of Andrew Painter and Aiden Miller. I just feel like Andrew Painter, we've been waiting for, it feels like 4 years at this point. It might be 4 years. He's going to be 23, I think, at the beginning of this season. Is he ready? You think he's going to be ready? Does he have the stuff to be a 3 in our rotation? What are we expecting here?
I wouldn't say this year he has that level of upside just yet. I think you got to go into 2026 hoping that A, he stays healthy. That's obviously crucial. But B, he needs to make sure that his command is back to where it was pre-Tommy John. He has the velocity starting to creep back up, which is great to see. But last year he was struggling with the command of his of all of his pitches, and that's where he really struggled. If we can just get close to a 4 ERA out of him, 125 to 150 innings, that's a huge win. Like, I don't want to get our expectations too high where he's, prior to Tommy John, he was, compared to Verlander and a Hall of Fame track. And like, let's pump the brakes a bit, especially for your rookie year. I think that we need to just make sure that he's healthy and performing well enough to be your 4-5, and then you can just you got to hope that the rest of the rotation fills in above that.
But you're expecting a full season out of Andrew Painter as a major league starter in a regular rotation.
I'm expecting him to be in the starting rotation on opening day. If he's not, that means he had a really bad spring training.
Sure. And, by all accounts, you come back from Tommy John, control is the last thing that will return. I have definitely heard what you have about his velocity and his physical makeup, being great overall. But, yeah, it's going to be a wild card. I guess we're going to know in the next couple weeks. And how about Aiden Miller? Does he seem like a major league ready guy at some point this season?
I love Aiden Miller. I got to see him in person one game in New Hampshire last year, and he was one hit shy of the cycle, and he got hit by a pitch in his last at bat. I'm not gonna ever forget that one. Anyway, he's really only coming up if they either have a Stott, Turner, Bohm injury middle of the year, or they decide to move on from Stott or Bohm. I don't think that's gonna happen until June, July at the earliest, that they say, Aiden, it's time. But he's a guy I'm probably highest on him, and he gives me the most excitement to kind of change up this lineup long term, because he's the power speed combo bat that we need to supplement the top three that we have. He could slot in at the end of the year in that 5-6 hole, but again, that's best case scenario, I'd say. What I would love to really kind of pick the Phillies' brain on is if they even consider him for the outfield at all this year. If they're at the middle of the year and he's got plenty of at-bats in AAA, they're starting to feel comfortable about bringing him up, and they need somebody in the outfield that's competent, I wonder if they consider it.
Oh man, that gives me bad flashbacks of your Scott Kingery's, Mickey Moniak's, where we just play with a prospect at different positions and just burn them that way too. That's another thing we didn't even mention about how we failed developing players. I will say that if Aiden Miller is producing at a high level in AAA the first half of the season, and we do have a guy like Stott, Bohm, whoever else go down in the infield, I do not want to hear this script again that they're just going to. He's not quite ready. We don't want to throw him into the fire too early. I mean, it could be the same thing all over again. I already see from the signing we made in Dylan Moore recently, a utility player in his early 30s, past Gold Glover. I can just feel it. I can just feel in July when we have to fill that roster spot that's who that goes to.
You still have Sosa on the roster, and I think that's going to be their first course of action if something happens in April, May, even June. You get past that point of the year, he's had half a season at AAA. Maybe Aiden Miller comes up for the second half of the year. Maybe he comes up in August and provides a spark to the lineup.
Would love to see it. And I don't want to see any of our regulars go down with injury, obviously, but that would be exciting to see a guy called up, in the type of timeline that other prospects from other organizations are. I want to talk about just quickly what given the roster, still trying to grade the offseason. Obviously, we held on to a lot of veterans. That's probably the biggest story of our offseason is who we held on to long term. Who do you see on this roster that is well known as being motivated or having a surprise big time year? Guys that I'm thinking of, you got Bryce Harper with his not elite motivation, given Dombrowski's comments. A couple others that I'll name, but I'll let you guys go there. Who do you see, maybe having just a big time year?
I think Harper is the most obvious answer because he's capable of it. He's shown that he's capable. He is motivated by perceived slights. He looks at himself as a Michael Jordan Last Dance, I took that personally type. I think he's the biggest panderer I've ever seen. I think his behavior is oftentimes corny, but I don't care as long as he produces on the field. Whatever he needs to do, if it's wearing fuzzy green Fanatic cleats, if it's, I just had a baby and I named it cheesesteak. I'm just like you guys. Whatever your thing is, whatever you got to do, bro. And if you have to, Dombrowski knew what he was doing when he said the elite thing. He knew Bryce was going to respond this way. And I think Bryce makes the most sense because he's done it before. He's a 2-time MVP. And if you look at a lot of his issues last year, it came from trying to do too much. I talk about him getting protection in the lineup. No player in baseball saw a lower percentage of pitches inside the strike zone than Bryce Harper. They had no reason to pitch to him, batting Schwarber leadoff and then Turner. Nobody's afraid of Alec Boehm. Nobody's afraid of Nick Castellanos. Nobody's afraid of any of these guys. Real Muto, any of them. It's a no-brainer. Why would you ever throw this guy a strike, right? But Harper, I think it gets it in his head where he's like, I got to expand the zone. I got to drive in runs. I'm a 3-hole hitter. This is what I'm paid to do. Blah, 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 blah. I think Dombrowski has a chance, along with Rob Thompson, to do something brilliant here, get in his head, be like, I don't know if he's still elite. Put Schwarber behind him, protect him. All of a sudden, he starts getting pitches in the strike zone, and Harper thinks that he figured it out on his own. I really think that there's a chance that that happens. The rest of the guys, I don't have a ton of confidence offensively. I look at Alec Boehm, and I'm like, this is a guy that should be motivated. This is a guy that should want to shut everybody up, because the chatter is louder now than it ever was when he said, I hate this place, or any of that stuff early on in his career. He has reached put up or shut up time. I just don't know if he's good enough to put up. When you're 6'5", 220, and you're like, I have 18 to 20 home run type of power, I don't feel great about it. If that. Yeah, I'm looking at the best case scenario. Stott, I think, could take a step forward, but I don't think it's going to be extra motivation. I just think he's due to take a step forward. But in terms of the guys who sit there and go, I have something to prove, I could take a step forward, to me, it's Harper and then a big drop-off, maybe Adolis Garcia. Because Adolis Garcia might look at it and be like, damn, I was on top of the world 2 years ago. Now, if I have another bad season here, I might be out of the league. He got non-tendered a few months ago. He went from World Series MVP to non-tendered. I think he's got some motivation, and I think he has the physical skills to pull it off. But outside of Harper and Garcia, I don't feel great about any of them, to be honest with you.
Fair. Mike?
Garcia was going to be the one I mentioned for the exact reasons. I'm really excited to see if he's able to change his approach to be a little more of the guy that he was in 2023. Getting out of Texas in that ballpark and going to CBP is going to be a big win for him. The one I'm really excited for is Luzardo. I think he's got that it factor that we saw in the playoffs, and I'm wondering if we can see that throughout the full season this year. Outside of his it's a contract year. I know he wants to stay with the Phillies long term, and there may be some contract discussions between the two before the season starts or even during the season, but I think he is a guy that has what it takes to go to the next level. Without those two blow-up starts in the middle of the year, his ERA was right around 3, and I think that you're going to get somebody who's closer to that for all of 2026. The other guy I want to mention, we love our Jose Alvarado on this podcast.
My other guy.
What is he post PEDs? I think there is a lot of question mark up in the air with him because of that. And without Strom, he's that guy. I mean, he is the high leverage lefty out of the pen that they need to really take the bullpen to the next level too.
Yeah, I am excited about Alvarado's upside. As odd as that is to say about a 30-year-old that we've seen, just torture us even at his best. But the prospect of having a back end of the lefty-righty power combo of Alvarado and Duran, and then you've got a guy like Keller, who is supposed to be someone who is equally high leverage. That's pretty exciting to me if it can pan out. Now, for a full season or at the right part of the season, who knows with power pitchers at the back end of a bullpen. But, yeah, I mean, Alvarado, he's got his tail between his legs. He's also probably fighting for his own existence in the league beyond this year. So whatever that takes, I still think he has the stuff. I just, why not? Why not have this be his redemption year and a breakout year at the same time?
And one more, not a vet, but a young gun. I mean, Kerkering. What does his season look like after how it ended last year? I mean, he's got a lot to prove that he's mentally tough to rebound after that disastrous ending to the season.
really good article by Matt Gelb this past week about Kerkering and how he has, leaned into the pain, hasn't shied away from, the criticism or anything else. It sounds like he's been surprisingly well received by the general public, which he has not shied away from. He stayed in the area all offseason, worked out a ton, did some soul searching, I would imagine. But yeah, I agree. That's exciting. That would be the kind of redemption story that would get people really going in this town. And I cannot blame last year on Ryan Kerkering, but I don't want to lose him as a weapon because he actually, speaking of prospects that were homegrown that have actually panned out and surprised us, he was actually brought up early, not when we expected him to, was thrown into the fire right away, and has been pretty good. And I do think, I really thought at the beginning of last year that he was going to be our closer of the future. He's got that two-pitch combo that reminded me a lot of a Brad Lidge at his best. I still think he has it in him, and man, if we got that plus the other three guys we've mentioned at the back end of the bullpen, really good shape. Really good shape.
I am not looking forward to they're going to give him a standing ovation, as they should.
No.
As they should. And listen, no. This is where, because I know you're not looking forward to it because you hate positivity.
Sure do.
You're the only one I know who, during that Trey Turner thing, you're like, I would rather he continue to struggle than go on a tear because we cheered for him.
Was at the game, sat down, and yelled at people around me. That's the kind of guy I was.
Right. And then the whole time he went like 6 straight games with a home run, and you're like, I hate this so much. I'm all for it. Kerkering's going to get a really positive response. I am just dreading the national media. Completely the amnesia. Every single time Philly fans are good fans, they're like, well, you believe this? Phillies fans, they're supporting one of their players. It's like, dickhead, we do this every single time. Every single time this happens, one guy threw eggs at Mitch Williams' house 30 years ago or whatever, and, anyway.
Just look at Alec Boehm in 2022.
Yeah, look where that got us. I'm done.
The pattern they miss, the pattern they miss is that we love guys who get up off the mat. We love to see you, scrape the bottom and come back up, and we will support the hell out of you on that arc upward.
And take ownership and accountability.
Correct.
And that's all Philadelphia wants, sometimes to their detriment, where it's like, all right, we would rather have you be accountable than good at baseball. And I'm like, maybe we should tweak this policy just a little bit. I do love a lot of the arms in the bullpen in theory. It's not anything against any of them. It's just a realization of, like, this is what bullpen arms are. It's a crapshoot. Injuries, guys fluctuate wildly from year to year. But yes, if Alvarado and Duran and, Kerkering and Keller, if you get a few of those guys. And by the way, I haven't checked today to see what the latest is, but the Dodgers just DFA'd Anthony Bonda, who I would absolutely take a look at. I mean, that's one of the things that happens when you have arguably the most talent on a roster ever. You take a reliever, a left-handed reliever with 2 years in a row, ERA in the 3s, who contributed to back-to-back World Series championships, and you DFA him. There are not many guys that are going to become available like that for no return. I think the Phillies should absolutely jump on that if they haven't already.
Interesting. Any targets, by the way, if we are looking at a flurry of trade activity throughout the league, and Dombo says he's going to be part of it? Anyone on your mind that we should be going after, whether it be for starting pitching or outfielders or anywhere else?
For me, it's there's a couple of guys I would look at. I think the Red Sox have an overabundance of starting pitching. Very rarely will you get a contender-to-contender trade like that. But a guy like Brian Bello, I know, went through some ups and downs with them. He's a little bit emotional, but the stuff is good. They added a couple starting pitchers this year. I think that's a position of strength that they might be willing to deal from. So I would certainly look at that. Obviously, like Joe Ryan from the Twins is going to be the big name. I don't expect anyone on that level to be in the Phillies' crosshairs right now, nor do I think that they have the talent to get a guy like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you got to be looking at kind of like mid-level guys. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Drew Rasmussen from Tampa Bay would be a big target of mine. Would love it if they could pull that off. But again, I think if the Rays send out an email to all teams and say, hey, this guy's available, give us your best and final offer, I expect the Phillies to be outbid pretty easily on that. But those are just a few names that I really like.
I think at this point of the off season, I don't think we're going to be seeing any major trades. You might get a small, bench piece or sixth starter type piece added to the roster as a flyer. They're probably going to add somebody in free agency on the starting pitching side who can then transition to the bullpen when they get Wheeler back. So I don't think there's anybody that I would necessarily say I'm dying to grab him off the scrap heap right now. I mean, you have some fancy names like Scherzer, Verlander, Bassett out there. I just don't think they're going to go after that type.
One guy that, Pat, you've mentioned previously that I think fits the profile you just put together there, Mike, is Walker Buehler. He's a guy you could just bring in for a minimal salary, 1-year deal. Could be a starter, could go to the bullpen if you needed him to. He just seems like a value piece that why wouldn't you if he's available? That would be a nice depth
Especially
piece.
you already brought him in. You brought him in. You gave him
right.
3 starts. He had an ERA under 1. You didn't let him touch the mound in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And now, is there no familiarity there? Did you not see enough to be like, oh, we'll take a flyer on this guy for a full season? Yeah, I don't get it, but they got to do something.
Agreed.
Castellanos for Tarek Skubal, straight up. Who says no?
Next topic I wanted to go on about is the World Baseball Classic. This is something that I've always really enjoyed. I'm sure you guys have as well. Especially, and the contrast for me just mentally about this year in particular. You got the Olympics starting right now, and I loved it when they let pro players play hockey. As in terms of international talent, hockey's probably got the best, spread in terms of superstars from various countries competing in that forum. The NHL stops its season. I never care about Flyers being on the roster. Not that the Flyers have been worth anything the last 15 years, but it has never crossed my mind that I didn't want one of our players competing in one of these extra tournaments. And for some reason this year, it's eaten at me a little bit. We have 15 currently rostered players playing in the World Baseball Classic. And we haven't gotten into it in this episode, but in prior ones, we've talked about how lucky the Phillies have been in this era with injuries, given an older and aging roster. Big names that are going to be in high leverage situations during this month. And some of them that I'll just run through the list, especially our pitchers. We've got Christopher Sanchez playing for the DR. We've got Taijuan Walker for Mexico. Aaron Nola for Italy, for whatever reason. His name ends in a vowel. Alvarado with Venezuela. And Brad Keller, who we haven't even seen play for our team yet, playing for Team USA. I do love that Johan Duran opted not to play for the DR because he doesn't feel comfortable with his contract situation. There was a interview with Brad Lidge recently talking about his experience when he played in the 2006, I think it was the inaugural WBC. He was a pretty pivotal part of that team. He said that it was his worst year in the prime of his career following that season because you rev up your arm in a way you're not used to at that part of the year. You go from 0 to 100 way faster than you ever would in a normal major league season. And he felt that he just didn't have, it in the tank that season afterwards. Do you guys feel this way? Am I being? Is it just panic on my part? Is it a function of the fact that this core has not won a championship? Is that where that's coming from? What are your thoughts on our guys in the WBC?
Personally, I don't love that Sanchez, Nola, Keller in particular, those three are playing. I love seeing Harper. I love seeing Schwarber on Team USA getting at-bats. Selfishly, I'll be down there in Houston
Nice.
for a couple of the USA games. So I'm excited to see them represent the country. But I want these guys fresh, the pitchers, that is. I want these guys fresh for a long postseason run, and this is just extending that season even longer. Especially a guy like Nola, who did not have a good year last year, and we're hoping that he bounces back. But is this the right way to start that rebound season?
And not just a bad year, but an injury-plagued year, which was not his form his entire career.
Yeah, I mean, listen, first of all, I might also be down in Houston for those games. So let's get together. We'll film some content. Make sure you smash that subscribe button, hit the bell, notifications. You guys forget, I'm launching a YouTube channel here. I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but, comment, like, subscribe, tell 10 friends to tell 10 friends, whatever the fuck you do. Okay, now, that being said, I think, honestly, you have to weigh your Phillies fandom versus your baseball fandom. And this is just part of the deal. The World Baseball Classic is outstanding. I went to one game back in 2017. It was Puerto Rico versus the Netherlands at Dodger Stadium. And this was back before the tournament was really hitting. There were maybe 20,000 people in the stands. I have rarely had more fun than I had at that game. Absolutely incredible. And then we all saw what happened 3 years ago, the dream scenario of ending it with Ohtani pitching to Trout. These are things that are necessary for baseball to grow the game and to make it more popular. Now, if that being said, if they turn around next year and there's a lockout and they miss time and they kill all the goodwill that they've built up, I reserve the right to change my opinion. However, as a baseball fan, I think the good outweighs the bad as a Phillies fan. Aaron Nola is the one who gets me because, like you said, he's coming off of an injury, and Italy's not winning anything. What are we doing here? Like, come on. Like, I understand.
I think the best case scenario with him is you get one start of like 4 innings, 5 innings at most, and
that's it.
He calls it, goes back to spring training. But, I just don't understand the risk for a guy like him who really of all the people that got denied insurance, Lindor and a couple of the other guys on Puerto Rico, I'm surprised that he got through that process for Team Italy because of the season that he had. I love the World Baseball Classic. I was like you. I was in attendance in 2017, but in Miami, got to see the USA versus Dominican game. Which was, unfortunately we lost, but that was one of the best games I've ever been to. So it's a fantastic event. I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge proponent of the World Baseball Classic. It's hard to separate the Phillies fandom, which I take so seriously, from enjoying the World Baseball Classic when I have players on my team that I'm concerned about participating.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I would say is that a lot of teams are in this same boat. I mean, living in LA, I hear more Dodgers talk than I do Phillies, and they do not love the idea that Yoshinobu Yamamoto, after throwing 2 complete games in the playoffs last year, pitching into November, coming in on 0 days rest in Game 7, he's like the ace for Japan. He's ready to go. And people are not thrilled about that. So a lot of contenders are in the same boat. Obviously, the Mets, a couple years ago, losing Edwin Diaz for the season when he, tore his ACL or his Achilles or whatever.
Celebration injury.
Yeah, celebration.
That's worst case scenario. Like, can you imagine Phillies sports talk radio with Chris Sanchez pitching for Dominican Republic, and then he tears his UCL and needs Tommy John? Like, worst case scenario, knock on wood, hope it doesn't happen. But
I have to believe that absolute doomsday scenario, we get our share of that, but that level is only reserved for the New York Mets. That can't happen to anybody else.
I mean, I guess we'll see. To date, I think the biggest nightmare WBC scenario for the Phillies fans has been we got Trey Turner and then got a sneak peek as to what Trey Turner could be. And
we've never gotten that Captain America Trey Turner.
Power hitter for a month, yeah.
He might have peaked in the WBC. Not that he's been bad, but he hasn't been Team USA Trey Turner in the 3 years that we've had him.
True that.
He's only got 8 more years to come back to Captain America status.
Well, we've got about 10 minutes left. I just want to end on as positive a note as we can. We tend to, I think, at least personally, forget what a great season it was last year. We won 96 games. It was a fun summer. It was a good team, a fun team, a season that is worth remembering. It just so easily gets clouded and wiped away by the way it ends, and the fact that it ended in an almost predictable way given the prior failures in the years leading up to that. But what were your guys' favorite memories of last season? What can we just put ourselves back in the ballpark midsummer again, which is what we look forward to every spring. I mean, that's what this is all about. It's what's so great about baseball. We had a great time. Let's relish some of that before we turn the page. Pat?
I mean, for me, my perspective is a little bit skewed because, like, living out here, I still get to a decent amount of Phillies games, but most of them are road games. So, while I was there for the Kerkering error, which is about as bad as it gets, I got to be there for some really good stuff. I drove up to West Sacramento to see him play there. They had the one game, I doubt anybody remembers at this point, insane back and forth game. The A's hit what everybody assumed was going to be a walk-off sac fly, and Brandon Marsh, center field Brandon Marsh, shades of a young Bo Jackson, threw out the runner at the plate, pushed it to extras. The Phillies won in extras. That was great. I was at Dodger Stadium the day they clinched the National League East. That was another crazy back and forth game. Big homers out of Betts,
Marchand,
Harper. The Marchand game. Yeah, there were a lot of ones there. And then game 3 of the NLDS, watching Schwarber hit one literally out of Dodger Stadium was incredible. And watching on TV when he had the 4-homer game, I mean, I really think Schwarber is going to be one of these guys that we're all going to be prisoners of the moment. And if the Phillies do not win a championship with this, it will be viewed as a failure, and maybe rightfully so. But that's going to be one of those guys who 15 years from now, you're going to be like, damn, let me look up a Kyle Schwarber home run compilation. And you're going to go back and see the 490-foot homer off of Darvish, and the one out at Dodger Stadium, and the 4-homer game, and the 56 last year. And you're going to go back and be like, man, that was a lot of fun. For a team that is viewed, I feel like, with so much kind of negativity right now, the fact that you had the runner-up for MVP, losing to arguably the greatest player to ever live, you had Sanchez was second in Cy Young, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were times where if they had told you you're going to have the second best hitter and the second best pitcher in the league, we would have killed for that. So I try to keep that in perspective. And Duran, when Duran first came out with that ridiculous entrance and all that, and was just blowing fastballs by everybody and those sweepers, it hooked that right up to my veins. Let's get more of that this year.
Pat, with regard to how we contextualize Schwarber, I was looking up, for whatever reason, just because we do this kind of stuff, a compilation of Tomey's best Phillies moments and the numbers he put up. The context of, the teams that he was on, it was so much different. There was no expectation of, deep playoff runs at the time. Tomey was he was the glimmer of hope as we opened a new stadium. He was the first big free agent signing the Phillies had ever made. But his numbers are, not far off from what we get out of Schwarber in this era. But we never ever watched Tomey and had negative feelings, even though the team wasn't winning or making the playoffs at all. I think you're right. You're going to look back at Schwarber and think maybe I should have enjoyed that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Mike, what were your favorite moments?
For me, it's easily the Schwarber 4-home run game. I mean, people forget that came immediately after they got swept at Citi Field, and things were looking pretty bleak. Are they going to blow this? Are the Mets going to come back and kind of pull a reverse 2007 on us? And Kyle, in his own way, put the team on his back that night in front of an Abbott Elementary crowd. which is a fantastic episode if you haven't seen it.
Right.
But just, Nola lets up 3 in the first that game, and you just are like, oh crap, here it goes. Like they're going down. This is gonna be an all-time collapse. And then Schwarber hits one in the first, and then another, and then another, and then he gets up there, hits the fourth, a no-doubter off the face of the second deck, and then you're just thinking, they're in the bottom of the 8th, he might get up again. And there's a position player on the mound. Could he hit 5? And of course, it doesn't happen. But like the fact that he got 4, there have only been 21 times where somebody's hit 4 home runs in a game. That's happened less than the number of perfect games in Major League Baseball history. It's that rare where you just got to soak it in, enjoy it, and just remember that this doesn't happen every day.
Right on. Yeah, my favorite moment was definitely, I'll say my favorite week was right after the trade deadline. We pick up Duran, we pick up Bader. I just love that time of year, midsummer, the stadium starts to just have that electricity to it. And then to bring in Duran with that intro, as much as I was not a fan of playing it every time he came out. But that first time was unbelievable. I think it was a Friday night, and then we had Bader. You could feel right away, like the first time he crab walked out in center field. You're just like, all right, this is a guy that people are going to get excited about. And yeah, I look forward to that. You just tend to gloss over that when things don't end the way you want to in October. But man, that's just fun baseball, and I hope we get that more of that this year. Any closing remarks, guys? We got, like we said, pitchers and catchers reporting in a day or two, and then full spring training next week. Parting shots.
I just want to say, because again, this is stuff that I've been told you should be saying when you are starting a YouTube channel. Go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell. Do all that shit. This podcast, we released this one on Tuesday, but going forward, this will be every Monday. Every Monday morning, we'll be dropping a new episode of the Specific Jawns podcast. And we're going to be there throughout the entire season to be miserable or ecstatic, wherever the emotions take us. I'm looking forward to being mentally unwell with you gentlemen for the next 8 months.
Couldn't ask for anything more. All right. Thanks. A good first episode. Go Phils.